All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to allow your brand to naturally unfold. And this can be a little tricky, and I'm struggling with this too right now with my brand, WKNDR Collective. And just to give you the foundation of it, of how to allow a brand to naturally unfold, but still have structure. I think that's the important key. Overall, that's what I'm going to talk about today. And what does this even mean? And this is where it gets a little tricky is think of Lamborghini, right? Like super dope sports cars. They started off as a tractor company. They were a tractor company that somehow puts out these cars that are a quarter to $500,000 and dope and super luxurious, right? And then you got Amazon, and we all know the story about Amazon, hopefully. They started off as a book company, and they got really good at selling books online, and then now they sell everything online, and you can get anything in 2 days. That's incredible, right? The third example is my brand, WKNDR Collective, okay? So it started off as a clothing company, but where I see it going is this lifestyle brand, adventure travel lifestyle brand that essentially is a platform to help, I want to say, your average people take their side hustle and turn it into, something that gives them freedom of time, money, obligation, and location. So in a sense, it's a nomadic launch platform that helps you turn your life into a lifestyle that you can monetize, right? But I also have the clothing aspect. And if your brand's something like this, I think it's a real tricky problem, but a good problem to have in business, right? Because the way I see it is I have 2,000 shirts that could equal up to $70,000 worth of merchandise. But if I don't sell it as a clothing company or don't sell the clothes, potentially, what could that be? And in my case, that could be brand exposure, that could be marketing, people wearing these shirts and taking photos and doing all that stuff. You get the gist. It's a really good brand identity, really good marketing, really good connecting features. There's more value, I think, in the clothing for WKNDR Collective than the actual value of the clothing. And if I wanted to go full clothing brand, for instance, I have about $80,000 or $70,000 worth of merchandise here, but I don't want it to be a clothing brand, right? But here's the tricky part is, and if you got something like this in your brand, it's really important because if you think about it, that could be the blessing that I'm overlooking, right? Or it could be the shiny object that I'm navigating around. And I think that's the key part of this whole video is understanding that element right there of never shut down a blessing, but also be open to the grand vision and allow everything to naturally unfold to how you get there, if that makes sense. Because for even instance, to even pull this back to another angle is where I'm at right now, 7 years ago, I never thought I'd be here. And that's the craziest part of this whole journey is I have a bio degree. I became a nurse. From a 1-year nursing degree, I was a nurse practitioner in graduate school. And then I dropped out, quit all that stuff, took a travel contract, bought a drone, already had a camera, was starting to build a brand, and then became an adventure travel content creator. You see what I mean? And even the sense of Lamborghini and Amazon, how they started and where they're at, it's kind of my story as an entrepreneur. And when you look at your brand and stuff too, think about this, where you're at and where you're going can be two completely different things, but your goal is to just be, what's a good word for this? Calm in the chaos, right? Because how things naturally grow, and if you think of nature and stuff too, this is a really good example I'd say is nature naturally grows in its own way. I got a plant behind me that's just growing all over the place, and and I'm just what are you doing when I look at it? But then I'm it's thriving, it's alive. And I think that's a really good point is anything alive and anything thriving is gonna find its way naturally. It's whether you can stay out of its way and naturally view it and also identify what key parts need to be identified and rooted a little bit heavier, if that makes sense. So for instance, if you're growing a brand and let's say, what's a good example of a client I've worked with? Let's just say you're a speaker. And right now you're in no space of being a speaker, right? But you have a background of management, you have a background of leadership, you get what I mean? You have all these elements, but you're not a speaker yet. But the one thing that would change your branding would just be putting out a public, speaking, what is the word for that? A public speaking presentation or something, right? But if you look at all this stuff in your background, you have every piece except for that one thing that's going to get you out there in public speaking. You got to kind of look at your brand like that. What elements are you learning in this moment is what I'm getting at, or what pieces are you learning in this moment that are creating the foundation for what you're doing? Because even I can't remember who told me this, but it's sometimes if you look at where you're at right now, and you're trying to look at where you're going, it'll drive you insane because there's not a single way that you can get there from where you're at. But then like divine intervention happens. Things just kind of like magically rearrange themselves, the butterfly effect, to allow you to get there. And that's like what I would say in like whether you're building a personal brand, whether you're building a service, or whether you're building like, clothing or a product brand, like just allow things to naturally unfold. Remain curious about everything that happens as it does happen. And if things surprise you, be open to where they could lead you, but also root down to the structure and the foundation of maybe that's a shiny object pulling you from where you're currently at and where you're going. And I think the best key around all this is to really identify your brand, whether it be through a brand mission statement, some branding values, so core values, core beliefs, core identity features, and allow yourself to have this piece of paper and sit it on your desk or put it wherever, but just allow yourself to maintain that structure, For instance, like WKNDR Collective is like freedom of time, money, obligation, and location, turning your side hustle into your main thing that creates essentially your money for your lifestyle, right? So essentially you're getting paid to live the life. That's the foundation of it. So then anything we do, we can build around that. But you got to do the same thing for your brand. Like think about how can you hold those core values that anchor in what you want to do and what is meaningful to you or what you're passionate about, and anchor that in, but then allow it to be ambiguous of how it manifests. And I think no matter what, like especially what I'm doing now, it's like I have that already created, and you can use something like Google Gemini or ChatGPT, kind of like put in your core values and ask it to build you, brand guidelines is essentially what this video is, but essentially allow you to create like brand guidelines and, as stuff manifest, you can see if it fits it or if it doesn't. But even like when you're creating content, when you're creating posts for, social media, when you're creating like maybe talk to camera videos like this, when you're creating whatever you're doing to market and grow it, make sure it reflects the foundations of the brand. Because the worst thing you can do if you're launching a brand, a personal brand, or something else is confuse people by putting out too many things. And I think that's why this is a really good example of like we have the clothing aspect, great. We have the 50-50 sales that are connected, but those are like little side pockets on the grand vision, So if your business is something like that too, like figure out which piece is most important and anchor it in. But you can also build these side things and allow them to like kind of slowly and quietly grow while you focus on one that you put out in front of people. But overall, like I'd say never pigeonhole or bottleneck yourself into saying like this brand is not this or this brand is not that, allow it to like naturally unfold, because sometimes I think you'd be surprised as, I'd say I'm surprised that I'm a creative entrepreneur doing what I'm doing now because I got a bio degree and a nursing degree, right? Like it just like things will happen in life. And instead of blocking your blessings, just like maybe lean into them and be like, maybe I could do both, or maybe this door is going to open too. Because I don't think you ever really know. And I think that's the magic of life, is like when you truly allow it to unfold, you're going to magically be surprised with what happens, but you can still have that structure and that foundation where you can kind of like maybe guide it. But also, like I said, don't be controlling on it, because you never know what's going to happen. Like you honestly never know. And the more curious I think you are to finding out while also maintaining what I would say you're passionate about and what ignites you and what brings you happiness and joy, and continually doing those things while allowing yourself to find maybe what you don't know out too, and then it magically grows together in this perfect little equation called your future, and then you get to live it. Like that's pretty cool. So I'd say overall, like just allow yourself or your brand to naturally unfold, and try not to be so controlling over it, but also allow it to expand. But create those guidelines, brand guidelines, and there's even like Notion templates that you can download, and just like have a mission statement, have core values, and then allow everything else to like manifest on its own. Because I think you'll be surprised sometimes with how your brand can grow in unique, niches, and essentially just what could possibly happen from something that you have that you're maybe not aware of, or maybe you're focused on one possibility and there's 10 other possibilities around you that could bring you even more value, is kind of what I'm getting at. So don't limit your perception of what you have. Allow it to expand beyond belief, but also be the one who's like, okay, this is getting a little out of control. Let's pull it on back. Let's get back to the guidelines. We got a little far away from those, So have those guidelines and allow them to really serve you with every piece of content that you create, or anything that you create to put yourself out there. Make sure it just kind of aligns with that, and then allow it to expand and grow beyond that. Man, that's solid. I think that's solid, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Peace out and have a good day.